All right. The bill is
Thank you.
reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Senator Surovell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Senate Bill 106.
Okay, hold on. Can I get some attention? 106.
This
Go
has
ahead.
to do with a fracking ban for part of the Commonwealth. There's a technical, I don't know whether we want to call them amendments or substitute that DEQ gave me that I forgot to give to council, which I just handed to them, which just makes basically some technical fixes. I don't know how staff wants to handle that or not, but.
Mr. Chairman, I can kind of describe what's happening here. I just saw this. So if you'll follow along, there's a few changes.
Okay.
It looks like we're changing the code section that this would be added to. So instead of the current code number, it would be 62.1-195.3.
So you're changing the actual statute number.
Correct.
There's two other changes.
I'm not sure which chapter that puts
Okay,
that
let's
in
take
off
these
the
one
top.
by one. So it's 62.1-195.3 would be the new statute number.
Correct.
All right, can I get a motion for that amendment? Can I have a second? Okay, all in favor of changing that statute number, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? All right, so that amendment is agreed to. Number two.
The second change would be in the first line, so line 13, after the word in, so fracturing in, we would add a phrase that says, any well that has been drilled through a portion of a, and then strike the word the that follows that. So the whole thing would read, no person shall conduct any hydraulic fracturing in any well that has been drilled through any portion of a groundwater management area, etc.
Okay, so we would be interlineating the words after hydraulic fracturing, any well that has been drilled through any,
They're cutting out.
what was that last word? Any
Portion of a.
Any portion of a groundwater management area.
Correct.
Okay, can I have a motion for that amendment, please? Yep, we're going to get a question. Go ahead, Senator Stewart.
Is that retroactive? The amendment reads retroactive if something's already been done. You mean it to make it prospective, or maybe I'm misreading it?
No fracturing in the future in any well where it exists.
Yeah. It would only be future wells that are drilled,
Future fracture.
future fracturing. Yeah.
And it could be an existing well.
It doesn't make, the amendment doesn't
Do you
make
wanna-
sense. The way it reads, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, awesome. Any well that, can you read that entire sentence, staff, Mr.?
Yes. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
no person shall conduct any hydraulic fracturing in any well that has been drilled through any portion of a groundwater management area declared by regulation pursuant to the provisions of.
That sounds prospective to me.
Retroactive. Yeah, that's
Anything
that's
that's
not.
already been drilled
Yeah.
is covered. And future, I think covered.
So in other words, if there's an existing hydraulic, okay, Scott, why don't you tell us what your intent is? That might be helpful.
Okay, and there's also, there's one other amendment just to correctly name the groundwater management area, which is in there too, but, no, but the purpose of the bill is to prohibit fracking in the eastern groundwater management area, which is basically, roughly speaking, everything east of I-95. There's about 84,000 acres of land on the Middle Peninsula and Northern Neck that's been put under lease by a company in what's called the Taylorsville Basin to frack for gas. That's the drinking water supply for about 4 million people. Okay. Many localities in that area have already banned fracking by local ordinance. This legislation, I believe, without these technical amendments, passed this committee in the 2018 session. On a bipartisan basis, died in the Finance Committee on, I think it was a 8-8 vote. I didn't bring the bill last year, but I brought it back this year. That's basically what it does. And there's a lot of people here to speak in support, but I'm looking to ban fracking into the future. I don't believe there's any fracking wells that have been drilled so far in the area, and DEQ suggested these technical amendments, and
Okay.
I think Mr. Paylor's over here. And
Can we move this amendment? So we have the any well that has been drilled through any portion of a of the groundwater management area. Can someone move that amendment? All right, I
Second.
second. All in favor, say aye of that
Aye.
amendment. Aye. Opposed, no. All right, so that amendment is agreed to. So we've amended the statute number, we've interlineated this language, and you said you wanted to change the name of the aquifer?
Yeah.
Okay, to what?
Actually, we want to change it to the aquifer and not the management area, I believe, because there's other aquifers in the area, and they wanted to make sure we're aiming at the right thing.
What do you want it to say?
Council has that.
Go ahead,
Right.
Counsel.
Mr. Chair, so on line 14, we would strike the word "this," starting with this chapter, and we would strike the entire rest of that line, as well as management area on line 15. So strike that whole section there and
Right.
instead insert the Groundwater Management Act of 1992, and it has a citation to Chapter 25 of Title 62.1.
And I believe that refers to the Potomac Aquifer, which is underneath.
Groundwater Management Act of, what was the year? 1992?
1992.
And you're telling us that refers to the Eastern Virginia groundwater?
The Potomac Aquifer.
Okay. Okay. All right, do I have a motion on that amendment?
So moved.
All right, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that amendment is agreed to. So we have this in the way you want it.
Yep.
Why do we need this bill?
We need it because there's a company that has signed a bunch of leases to frack in this area. The Potomac Aquifer is the drinking water source for 4 million people. I think Senator Mason has a bill coming up related to it here in a minute. The aquifer is under stress. I believe it's dropped by 200 feet in 100 years in terms of its level, which is why we impose this restrictions on it. If we get a bunch of fracking chemicals in it and they start percolating throughout, then you've screwed up drinking water for 4 million people, perhaps irretrievably. When they've done fracking in other places, it's messed up groundwater. We can't run that risk. And I think that it should be prohibited. And I would just note, by the way, that the Eastern Groundwater Management Area in the Potomac Aquifer does extend into Fairfax County. I might be the only senator who represents a part of it. Maybe Senator McPike has a bit. So this isn't me freelancing in other people's turf. This actually directly affects the district I represent.
Okay.
Mr.
Well, that's
Chairman.
refreshing. Okay. Senator Morrissey.
I want to ask a question in a moment about the negative consequences of this hydraulic fracturing. But my first question is it just me, or does it appear that to anybody else that Senator Surovell appears before almost every committee and subcommittee with a number of bills?
Yeah.
Scott, what is the...
I apologize.
I'm being cheeky. Scott, what are the negative consequences of this hydraulic fracturing? I understand that you said it has the potential to harm the drinking water for 4 million people. I don't know that much about hydraulic fracturing and don't need an entire primer, but just kind of want to be educated.
Well, my understanding of how it works is that they drill a hole in the ground, and they drill a bunch of holes sideways, and then they squirt a bunch of chemicals down there, which is sort of a secret sauce at really high pressure, and it breaks all the rocks up, so the gas starts coming out of them. That's my sort of layman's understanding of it. Senator Chafin was here, but I guess he left, but he carried a bill a couple of years that would have prohibited disclosure of that secret sauce of chemicals, which has never passed. But where this has been done in other places, especially in Pennsylvania, I became aware of it through this movie called Gasland, which sort of documented the different problems they've had. For example, people can light the water out of their tap on fire, and they've ruined people's groundwater wells. There are people in the industry who disagree and think that movie is a big PR stunt, and they have their own view of it. But I think it is documented that hydraulic fracturing has ruined groundwater in a lot of the areas where it's been conducted.
Okay.
So
Senator
just so that I
Morrissey.
get it, under the purpose of trying to put this solution in there, which you call it a hot sauce, to gather gas. Special sauce. The purpose is to collect gas. It has the potential to affect the water supply. That special sauce will do something to affect the water supply. We don't know quite how it's done, how that occurs, but it's got the potential.
Right. Well, you have to drill through 3 or 4 aquifers to get to bedrock. And if the special sauce leaks out of the well on its way through the aquifers, or if it percolates up from the bedrock back into the aquifer, then
I
it can
see.
screw everything up.
Thank you.
Mr.
All
Chairman,
right, Senator Mason.
Senator Searle, the leases you discussed have expired, correct?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. I know they were signed up for in like the last 4 or 5 years, but I don't know what timeframes were on them.
Some of them still exist. But, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator
Either
Mason.
way, on the go forward, you would just like this in place so that there would be no leases to even be active or be pursued.
Right. I want to discourage anybody from going out and getting leases. What I understand is there are 84,000 acres that were under lease at one point.
All right, look, you got a friend.
Renaud Singer, Friends of the Rappahannock. From our best understanding with the 84,000 acres is that they were leased beginning around 2014, 2015. Many of them are 5-year leases, but there's really no way to know exactly where we
These are
stand.
mineral rights leases, I assume.
These are the rights to the gas and the minerals underneath, the gas underneath.
Okay,
Thanks, sir.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Stewart.
just to answer that question, I am aware of there are a couple out there that are still alive and have been renewed, but I want to speak to Senator Searle's bill. I guess going back 8 years, when they started acquiring these leases, or maybe it wasn't that long ago, I met with this company, and they're more of a company of flippers where they go in and try to gather up these leases and then give them to somebody that may want to try to produce. But one of the first questions I asked them was, if you injure this aquifer, which so many millions of people rely on for drinking water, what do you do? And they said, we don't know, that's not going to happen. And that wasn't a satisfactory answer for me, because I represent a lot of those people in that area. And so I tried really hard to work out a set of regulations and some other things. And I got to thank the director of DEQ, who worked with me a great deal too. And we really tried to set up a framework that would protect the aquifer, that would protect the landowners and people's ability to do this, so that it wasn't an all-out moratorium and I got cut off at the knees at every turn, as hard as I tried to do that. So while we tried to adopt that, it's unfortunate that it seems this is ultimately going to be the only solution, because we couldn't get people to wrap their arms around a regulatory framework that would protect the aquifer, and it's a significant issue. It is a giant body of fresh water that the seafood industry relies on in the area that I represent, and that millions of people rely on for drinking water and a lot of other activities. And if you ruin it, I guess it's done for 10,000 years. I don't know. So
Okay, all right.
I just wanted to speak.
Okay, Senator Searle, do you have any supporters? Anyone here to
Yeah.
speak in favor of the bill? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chris Moore, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. In addition to the comments about the concerns about the drinking water quality, there's also a host of surface water concerns with these type of operations, and so we support this bill. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Town, Virginia League of Conservation Voters. We support the bill, and I just want to thank Senator Surovell, Senator Stewart for their years of work on this issue. I think this is a big step forward, and we highly encourage you to support the bill.
Thank you, Mike.
Hello, my name is Linda Muller with the Virginia Chapter Sierra Club. We do support the bill. We want to thank Senator Stewart's past work on this as well. And what wasn't mentioned, as well as the concerns of toxic chemicals, is that it is a highly water-intensive process. Multiple millions of gallons of water is required to do this process. And the Potomac Aquifer already has difficulties with recharging. So again, we support this bill. Thank
When
you.
you say process, you mean fracking?
Yeah, the fracking process. Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name is Suzanne Keller. I'm here today for the Virginia Clinicians for Climate Action, and we support this bill. And I just want to answer one of the questions perhaps about this. You know, the fracking boom is not very old. It started in 2005, where they used this toxic special slush to crack open the rock. And I just want to point out, in 2016, there were about 400 peer-reviewed studies looking at the health impacts of fracking and gas infrastructure. By 2019, there were 1,800 studies in the medical literature documenting negative health consequences from fracking. So I hope you'll support the bill.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Pat Calver, Virginia Conservation Network, all of our organizations, partner organizations, fully support and appreciate the efforts of Senator Stewart and Surovell.
Okay. All right. Who are not, oh, one more. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Brent Hunsinger, Friends of the Rappahannock. We support SB 106. We're very, very thankful for Senator Stewart and Senator Surovell support for this bill. One thing that we haven't mentioned is the impact on local infrastructure, roads, bridges, et cetera, can be quite destructive. On especially secondary roads are not built for drilling rigs and large vehicles that come with this type of technology. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Okay. All right. Other side of the coin.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, David Clark representing the Virginia Oil and Gas Association. We have seen this bill. This is the third time we've seen the bill. First in 2014 from Senator Stewart, and then we've seen the same bill from Senator Surovell 2 years ago. The only thing that's changed in that time period is most of those leases, if not all, have expired. There have been no permit applications sought. We've testified at that time we didn't think the bill was necessary. We believe that's still true today. DMME and federal agencies have a comprehensive regulatory program that oversees natural gas and oil production in Virginia. And that regulatory program already precludes drilling in the most sensitive areas in eastern Virginia and imposes substantial additional restrictions and requirements before any drilling could occur in Tidewater, Virginia. I was prepared to just tell you that this bill was not necessary. I frankly do not understand the effect of the amendments that were made. The bill is introduced, and as we've seen it before, was limited to the Eastern Virginia groundwater management area, and we know what that is. It's defined under code. I don't know what those changes were that were made, but I can tell you if this was expanded beyond the Eastern Virginia management area, or at least Eastern Virginia, then we would have serious issues with the legislation.
Let me just break in there. I've had this conversation with Senator Surovell. This bill is focused on the Potomac Aquifer, correct?
Right. And my understanding of the amendments the DEQ gave me specifically directed it to the Potomac Aquifer, which is...
Mr. Paler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The reference to the Eastern Groundwater Management Aquifer, the aquifer itself has a depth limitation to it. And so the purpose of this amendment was to reference all territory that is in the aquifer or below the aquifer. We don't have a position on the bill per se, but the purpose of that amendment was to make sure that, you know, if your fracking was below the Potomac aquifer, you still would have the potential, perhaps, that that the patron is
Let me just
worried
make
about.
this a yes or no question. This is all territory that's east of Fredericksburg.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, it's east of 95.
East of
There is no lateral geographic extension. It's just a depth extension.
Okay. All right, Miles. Anybody else?
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, I was just confused because as I heard the language, it was referring to aquifers generally. There were some other changes that seemed to be limited to the Potomac, but again, I hadn't seen the amendments, had a little hard time following them, and would be concerned because I think there are aquifers outside of the Eastern Virginia area that we're talking about.
Let me just say, in this body, sometimes we have to do things on trust, and I'm going to trust that what's been represented, this is the Potomac River area. And by the way, Senator Surovell, if this came back in a different form from the House, it's going to be a problem. So just so everyone understands that. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, Miles Moore with the Virginia Petroleum Council. Just wanted to reiterate, we are opposed to the bill. I would think it's unnecessary and potentially Potomac Aquifer is part of a coastal plain aquifer system that is drilled through and fracked under in many other states in the South without incident. So we don't think this is necessary. Thank you.
All right, anybody else have any comments on the bill? Any questions from the committee? The chair will entertain a motion. Okay, I've got a motion and a second to report. Open the roll. Cast your votes. Okay.
Yeas 10, nays 5.
Okay, the bill is reported 10 to 5. Yep. Senator Mason, you're back up.
Bill 673, first, Mr. Chairman, let me apologize to the staff for, these guys are overworked dramatically, and I'm bombarding them with amendments on the bill I just overwhelmed you with before, and this bill, and so my apologies. So I think I should do better than that, but I think we have the proper amendment before us now.
What, this is Senate Bill 673?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, did you just give us this substitute? Have we moved this?
We doing it, no. Is
All right,
this substitute or is this amendment? Substitute. Okay, we're doing it as substitute.
All right,
Thanks.
amendment in the nature of substitute, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.